Hi, I'm Donovan. Today we're going to begin a guided practice of a prayer of quiet, meditation, contemplation, has different names. I'll invite you to use breath and visualizing if you want to. And as always with any prayer, it's up to you. You can mix and match. You don't have to do it. I'll guide you through different options for you to explore this. So I'd like to start by before we begin this guided practice of prayer of quiet, I want to start by sharing some words of encouragement. In many traditions, people practice silent meditation in groups, for example, Zen and other Buddhist communities. And some of us may be more used to praying in silence alone or meditating alone. Before most of us are able to let go and rest in God or our higher sense of truth for 20 minutes, an hour, or longer in silent meditation, most people find it helpful to try this practice with other people first, not to try to do that alone for hours on end, and usually with a little guidance at the beginning from those who are more experienced in meditation, who can help affirm and support your efforts. There are even, wonderful guided meditation videos, of course, you probably know that already, but from a lot of teachers of meditation who work with and guide communities. I'm thinking really of Thich Nhat Hanh and Pema Chodron. There's just so many. Those are two that I really like. It can be really helpful to ask questions if you're in a group, you get a chance, or if you're just practicing, even in a very small group. I have a group of folks I practice with locally that it's a pretty small group, maybe a couple dozen people, and we get together once a week and do this. Even a smaller group that we meet virtually, and it's like 3 to 6 of us at any given time. We meet once a week. And when you're together with other people, you can ask each other questions afterward about how it went and hear what other people are experiencing. And sometimes that's very encouraging as you're learning how to meditate or just kind of expanding and growing your experience of it. Whether alone or in a group, the goal of our quiet prayer is to seek quiet rest, experiencing interconnectedness with all that is, all in all. For some of us, that's God. That last phrase I use is a phrase that's often used in biblical traditions for God, but all that is a phrase that's often used in non-theistic traditions. So this is a wonderful practice that especially I've found very open-minded people who don't necessarily share the same viewpoint are willing to share this kind of time and practice together. In other words, I'm thinking especially of a group of folks locally that it's a pretty large group that I practice with, that most of them are not theists. I'm, coming out of the I'm connected with the Christian tradition. And I do pray theistically most of the time. It's really a joy to be able to share with their permission in groups that are open to whatever's going on in you. That's your time, that's your meditation, and I'm just sharing that I hope that this can also be that kind of practice that adapted to suit wherever you're at and what you're trying to do. Some Christians may be guided in prayer by Jesus' teaching in the Sermon on the Mount about praying alone. Very familiar to Christians, the words of Jesus in Matthew chapter 6. When you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who's unseen. Then your Father who sees what's done in secret will reward you. It will not be obvious to other people that you're fasting. This very long prayer, usually, kind of retreat, silent, private prayer, but only to your Father who's unseen. And your Father who sees what's done in secret will reward you. So Jesus clearly taught that quiet prayer times alone with God are important, and he practiced this himself. He retreated from people from time to time, even his disciples, to rest and pray by himself. all throughout the Gospels he did that, and it seemed like he would get periods of intense activity, like after the people after the Sermon on the Mount, when he fed the crowds with just the loaves and fishes, if you know this story in the Gospels. That exhausted him seemingly. He like borrowed a boat, went over, had like crossed this body of water to get away from his own disciples and spend some time alone. That's one of the stories that stands out in my mind. Of course, there were the 40 days that he spent, fasting and in the wilderness is a well-known story that's in a couple different Gospels. So Jesus liked his alone time, right? He liked his quiet prayer and his privacy in prayer. And that said, that was one important way that he prayed and that he taught others to pray, but it's not the only way he prayed. Jesus, too, practiced prayer in a lot of different ways. Frequently, he prayed with large crowds, like at the Sermon on the Mount, and in small groups, like his gathering of friends, his disciples. So that was in addition to his private, quiet times. Just bringing that up to say, if your tradition or your, causes you some hesitation about praying silently and quietly with other people because of that passage from the Sermon on the Mount, I just invite you to consider that Jesus used a variety of different prayer practices, and they are in the Bible. His followers used a variety of different prayer practices. So just food for thought. So now let's prepare for our own quiet rest in God or in connecting with our higher truth. For example, you might want to try sitting in natural light. This is the preparation time. Try to where you want to be, how you want to do it. You could try sitting in natural light as a visual reminder of the spiritual light or the light of truth that we're trying to let flow through us. Perhaps you might want to sit outdoors in indirect sunlight. I usually like to do that every morning. I meditate and pray throughout the day because it kind of keeps me stable and centered and grounded as best I can. I have my ups and downs throughout the day, so I revisit this practice throughout every day. But one of the ways I like to do it is I do like to go outside. I find it's a different experience for me when I do my prayer with breath and movement and kind of looking around for different colors. It's kind of centering, grounding, orienting. Looking for the light, even on very cloudy days. I like to just kind of notice. So if that's helpful to you, that's a tool you can try. Likewise, sometimes, especially if for whatever reason, especially in these pandemic lockdown times, if I don't get outside during the day, I like to go out at night and meditate under, next to a tree, for example, or something like that. But to just be aware of the light of the stars and the moon in whatever phase of the moon is in. I really enjoy meditating on that and just kind of noticing it and thinking about how that relates to sort of the light of truth that sometimes it's hard to see. Sometimes the shadow side is more what I see than the fullness, and that it waxes and wanes, it changes. I get a lot of that's helpful to me. It's a helpful reminder. So anyway, those are some things you can do, or you could use a lit candle. If this image of light, filling yourself with light in your quiet time helps you, I'm holding up now. I was looking at words, so let me see if you can see. So this is a candle that I bought on clearance. If you know me, like I never like to pay full price for anything because I like to have money that I can give away to my charities that I care about and things like that, and my kids. But anyway, I'm sharing this because if you were ever my student in one of my theology classes, my Christian classics class especially, or any of the times I usually opened all my classes with prayer. I used to teach at a Christian university. I won't. Anyway, so we were allowed to do that. In fact, we were encouraged to do that. So we would do silent meditation in this prayer. This candle was one I bought and used with my students. So I just wanted to show it for a minute. And then I'm going to show this one too. This is another this is a rainbow bridge candle holder, votive holder. I'm renting a room from friends that have reactions to scented candles. So I prefer natural candles, but these are electric candles. Anyway, why am I telling you about this? Because this is a rainbow bridge, and if you look up Kittredge Cherry's Jesus in Love blog, or Q Spirit, or even I wrote a Huffington Post blog about Rainbow Bridge. But anyway, it's a queer New Year type of, it's like winter holiday, a queer winter holiday, way that we remember. It's queer centered, queer affirming ways that those of us that want to do that can remember how we're connected to our spiritual source, and other people who are queer, other people that are. The reason we do this is in large part because of being excluded, shamed, and threatened sometimes by other people in our religious communities. So having some prayer rituals that help affirm that we are connected to whatever source we believe in, that we are spiritual people, that we are connected to each other in compassionate, loving ways, seeking a higher truth, living with compassion, being of service. You like look it up if you're interested. Anyway, I just wanted to share that those are the kinds of things. I'm sure you have things in your own life that are meaningful to you. These are focus objects. So I just wanted to introduce you to that. And once you feel ready, we can go ahead and start our quiet time with a 5-minute period of silence. And it's not beginning yet because I'm going to make some suggestions before we go into it. When you're meditating on your own, take as much or as little time as seems right to you. There is nothing magical about the number 5, that we have to do it that way. Nothing about this entire practice is rigid. It's the goal is to just experience quiet and connection. So there's everything else I say, every suggestion I make, everything we do in this practice, it's variable. It's something that you can adjust. Many people experience the best results working gradually from a very short period of meditation of 1 or 2 minutes before they try a longer period. So I'm going with 5 because it's kind of a compromise amount of time. Maybe I should go with 1 or 2. But anyway, I usually do this when I do this in a group. I usually do this for 5 minutes. It might seem like a long time. You might be surprised how long it seems if you're not used to doing this. So I just want to give you a heads up about that. People have shared with me from so many different meditation groups and different traditions that starting out with 1 or 2 minutes was what they had to do at the beginning before they could work their way up gradually to longer periods of time. So that seems to be a fairly universal experience. So I hope you won't be surprised by that if indeed for you, keeping the mind quiet and feeling rested for that 1 or 2 minutes of quiet, let alone 5 minutes of quiet, it might be more of a struggle than anticipated. As we prepare ourselves individually in body and mind, we'll each take whatever we need, whatever seated position is most comfortable for you. It could be in a chair, it could be on the floor. I'm on the floor right now, or it could even be lying down. I think I shared in the introduction to this whole series that I had certain students that would really like to do this lying down on the floor behind their desk. So if that's what you like to do, again, there's traditions in which we do this kind of thing lying down to do like kind of a body scan sometimes, and then a period of total surrender lying down. If you do yoga, you might shavasana, that can be a kind of an experience like that, or you could use it in that way. Then we close our eyes as we're silent. Once you get into your position, you'll close your eyes and let yourself rest in God's presence, in the presence of interconnectedness, whatever it is whatever word you have for your higher truth. We're trying to let our bodies experience quiet stillness as we're able to. If it helps, while you silently relax, you might try reflecting on yourself as part of something greater than yourself. Doesn't matter what it is. Humanity as a whole, all living creatures as a whole, even just part of the universe itself. Like I'm made of atoms and molecules and energy that come from the universe. Right? Try to focus on your present experience, letting go of any memories of the past or worries about the future that come up during these moments. Simply try to be fully present with God or your higher truth or yourself here and now. Our intention right now is just to be open to loving God, others, and self, experiencing as fully as possible our existence and the interrelatedness of all in this moment and place. As you lay there or sit there, let yourself feel filled with love, growing in empathy and compassion for others and yourself. In our guided quiet prayer together, we'll stay here for 5 minutes. And I'm going to actually explain what the breathing part that we do last after that 5 minutes instead of going into the 5 minutes now. I'm just going to give you a heads up. Now we can, after that 5 minutes of quiet, we'll enter the practice of connecting breath and prayer as a way to keep our mind from wandering. So if you don't need any help staying focused as you rest in God or rest in that sense of interconnected love, there's no need to interrupt your silence. And you don't have to join us in the breathing and the words and all that. This is just offered as one tool that many people in many traditions find helpful to extend their period of silent contemplation if they're struggling to stay focused. Some people call it sort of taming the butterflies of the mind or the jumping monkeys of the mind, monkey mind. If that's not your experience, if you're not distracted, then you don't need to join us in that part. If any physical or mental distractions do come up, just notice them and let them pass by like a floating cloud. Don't cling to them. Don't push them away. Don't judge them. Just let them drift. And just release them. So to bring your mind back, if that happens, to focusing on resting in God, you can repeat very softly, either aloud or silently to yourself, a word or a phrase you want to pray or use to meditate. For some people, that could be a mantra. Whatever language is your language or a meaningful meditation or prayer language for you. The most important aspect of this prayer isn't necessarily what words you use. It's just to use them thoughtfully and mindfully. And the same with the breath. It's not about how you're breathing or how deeply you're breathing or how many breaths you breathe or anything like that. It's just, I'm noticing my breath. I'm noticing my breathing. And in that, I'm noticing that I'm connected to this. Here's an example. Yesterday, I was so stirred up yesterday. Actually, it was related to this series. I was really stirred up because there were people posting comments that I was just very worried about, and I was concerned about whether they were angry or if I'd stepped on their toes or how should I respond, and how was I being too self-focused and being too concerned about this, or should I just let this go and live and let live. And so I was just all stirred up about it. It kind of sounds silly now, but I was very emotional about this. So my breathing prayer was actually like to feel interconnected. I had to get it this simple. I was like, I'm breathing out carbon dioxide. There's a tree outside the window at the room I'm in. The tree is breathing in the carbon dioxide and breathing out oxygen. I'm breathing in the oxygen and breathing out the carbon dioxide. The tree is breathing in the carbon dioxide. I literally, I had to do, I didn't have to, but that was my prayer, not with words, but just kind of thinking about me and the tree exchanging these molecules. And it helped me calm down, feel connected, and respond in the right kind of way in the situation, not take myself too seriously, just kind of right size that we're all connected. All, not just humans, but everything that lives and everything that is. Anyway, so definitely it's not about the words or the images you use, whatever works for you. In our shared guided practice today, I'm just going to use a simple prayer the friends of Francis of Assisi so often heard in praying, my God, my all. For those who prefer a psalm, the Peace Church pastor Susan Boyer in Southern California guides her congregation through the following simple words from Psalm 36, verse 9 actually. but she's kind of paraphrased them in or pulled certain ones to make it a simple prayer. Oh God, we drink at your fountain. May we be refreshed and restored in you. And you don't have to remember that. If you're interested in this form of prayer, if you're interested in the different guided words that I've been talking about throughout chapter 4, the last few days, I have a handout. It's a PDF that it's a you would chop it in half, and you would have two small handouts with the words of this is guided prayer for Christians on this handout specifically, because those are folks in my experience who are a little bit less experienced with praying this kind of prayer, and found it helpful to have biblical words to do this kind of work. So anyway, so I have that handout. If you want, reach out to me and I can get that to you. As I guide you through my God, my all, I invite you to focus on each phrase separately, very slowly breathing in and out. Breathe in while repeating to yourself, my God. Let me just fix the grammar on that. One place I missed an update. And you breathe out while repeating my all. If you'd like to add to that, or even swap out, you don't have to focus on, am I breathing in or breathing out? You can focus on some imagery, or you could visualize God's spirit or just universal energy as a light, playful breeze, sounding peace and loving goodness through you like God's own instrument. Again, these are the words of Francis, so I'm kind of tying this together with that whole make me a channel, make me an instrument of thy peace. So you could breathe in and think about God's blowing through me like God's playing a flute, or truth or beauty or goodness or love is playing through me like I'm an empty reed, and love is sounding like the notes of a flute. It's an image you can use. For those who need to be grounded in biblical imagery, again, those kinds of images come from Psalm 18, Psalm 119, and John 14. Again, the manuscript has all kinds of biblical references and footnotes in it. I can't really bring those forth in a video, but they do exist. This was originally written for a Christian audience, an evangelical audience, no less. So it not only has the Bible verses, it has which translations. And anyway, this is just a video series, so I'm not trying to bog down any more than I do with details that aren't of interest to everyone. Anyway, then when we breathe out, you could visualize letting go of anything that's holding you back from filling up with God's love for you and through you as a channel to all around you. So again, breathing out, letting it go, my all, letting go whatever's blocking that channel. And I have the very simple way of guiding you through it when we get to it. I'm just trying to prep for this. So we'll focus on breathing, visualizing, or specific words if you want to, just as tools that help some and they distract others. So please just try these suggestions only if and when they're useful. If you find yourself resting in God's presence, like I said before, if you're already filled with a sense of love beyond words and images, please just enjoy that connection quietly and rest. That itself is prayer of quiet or meditation. Okay, so now finally our practice begins. So go ahead, and if you haven't done so already while I was chattering away, set up, maybe if you want a candle, or if you want to look out a window, or you want to position yourself where you're connecting with light or with something that's going to be a visual focus object for you, do that. Get yourself comfortable, seated or laying down. And we'll just start with 5 minutes of silence. Now, if you are feeling deeply connected, interconnected, and want to stay in that quiet space, there's no need to join us in the next closing part of the practice. For those who wish to focus on breath, word, or image, breathe in, my God. Thinking of God's Spirit as a light, playful breeze coming into you, filling you with peace, loving goodness. Exhale, my all. Letting go of anything holding you back from filling with God's love for you as a channel that blows out, breathes out to all around you. Breathing in, my God, breath of God on the flute of your soul. And by breathing out, my all, letting go of anything that blocks the channel. My God, the music of your soul. My all, letting go of anything that blocks your delightful sounding. Now your own pace. Please feel free to continue the practice if you wish. I'm going to end the video now. And thank you for sharing this time of quiet prayer with me.